We've all experienced that unsettling moment. You walk into a room with purpose, only to pause and wonder why you came. A familiar word hovers just beyond reach in conversation. Morning vision feels hazy, taking longer than it used to sharpen. Night driving becomes stressful, with headlights blooming into glare. Most people shrug and say, "That's aging." But what if some of what you're feeling is not simply decline, but depletion? After decades spent observing how the body changes over time, one pattern appears again and again. The brain and eyes are extraordinarily demanding organs. They require constant nourishment, precise circulation, and protection from inflammation. When those needs aren't met, function doesn't just slow, it struggles. Modern diets, despite being abundant in calories, are often surprisingly poor in specific compounds that support neural signaling, retinal resilience, and microvascular health. Yet the solution is not always complex, expensive, or pharmaceutical. In many cases, it begins with something disarmingly simple: what you drink and when you drink it. There exists a category of warm herbal infusions that gently deliver biologically active compounds capable of supporting cognition, visual health, circulation, and nighttime recovery. These are not miracle cures, nor are they substitutes for medical treatment. They are tools, subtle but powerful when used with understanding. Before we explore this further, take a moment to reflect. How old are you today? Where in the world are you listening from? Imagine a global community of people who refuse to equate aging with surrender. Individuals choosing curiosity over resignation, participation over passivity. Now, let's begin with the morning, a period that quietly determines how the rest of your day unfolds. During sleep, your body enters a prolonged fast. For hours, no fluids are consumed. Hydration levels fall. Blood becomes slightly more viscous. Even the brain, composed largely of water, experiences a small but measurable reduction in volume. This is normal physiology, but upon waking, the brain urgently needs replenishment. Many people respond by reaching immediately for sugar-laden drinks or strong coffee. While stimulating, this approach can be harsh on the aging system. Rapid glucose spikes can provoke inflammatory responses. High caffeine loads may elevate cortisol, a stress hormone already naturally high in the early hours. Excess cortisol, over time, is associated with strain on memory-related structures, such as the hippocampus. A gentler strategy is possible. Warm green tea offers a uniquely balanced biochemical profile. Beyond its reputation in popular culture, its true significance lies in its neurological effects. Green tea contains catechins, particularly epigallocatechin, galatea, EGCG, a polyphenol studied for its ability to support vascular function and neural efficiency. To understand why this matters, imagine the brain not as a single processor, but as a vast network. Different regions specialize in different tasks: memory retrieval, decision-making, sensory interpretation. These areas must communicate constantly through intricate white matter pathways. With age, these communication routes may lose some efficiency. Signals can feel slower, less crisp. Research using advanced imaging techniques has suggested that compounds derived from green tea may help support functional connectivity between brain regions. In simple terms, communication becomes smoother, more coordinated, not faster in a jittery sense, but clearer. Green tea also contains L-theanine, an amino acid with a remarkable property. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and influences brainwave activity. L-theanine is associated with the production of alpha waves, the electrical rhythms linked to calm focus. This creates a state often described as relaxed alertness, avoiding the overstimulation and subsequent crash some experience with stronger stimulants. Instead of shocking the nervous system awake, green tea coaxes it into readiness. Yet, even the most elegant cognitive support does not directly address another common concern of aging: visual clarity. For that, we turn to a different infusion. Goji berry tea, long valued in traditional practices, has drawn increasing scientific interest. Laboratory analysis revealed that goji berries are exceptionally rich in carotenoids, particularly zeaxanthin. This pigment plays a crucial role within the retina, specifically in a tiny but vital region called the macula. The macula governs central vision, reading, facial recognition, fine detail. It is protected by a yellowish pigment layer that acts like an internal filter, shielding delicate photoreceptor cells from high-energy blue light. Over time, this protective pigment may thin. When it does, retinal cells become more vulnerable to light-induced stress. Studies have indicated that consistent intake of zeaxanthin-rich foods may help support macular pigment density. In practical terms, this means reinforcing the eye's natural defense system. However, preparation matters. Zeaxanthin is fat-soluble. Brewing berries in hot water alone extracts flavor, but not optimal nutritional value. The rehydrated berries themselves contain the compound you want. Consuming them, ideally alongside a small source of dietary fat, supports absorption. Without that step, much of the benefit is lost. Thus, a mid-morning ritual emerges. Sip the infusion, then eat the softened fruit. We've addressed nourishment for neural signaling and retinal protection. But delivery depends on another factor entirely: circulation. Nutrients are useless if they cannot reach their destination. In the aging body, microcirculation can gradually lose flexibility. Tiny vessels feeding the brain and eyes may stiffen. Blood flow may become less efficient. The symptoms are often subtle: cold extremities, lightheadedness upon standing, persistent mental fatigue, reduced visual endurance. Supporting vascular dynamics becomes essential. Ginkgo biloba tea introduces compounds known as ginkgolides and terpene lactones. Rather than forcing the heart to work harder, these compounds are studied for their influence on vessel elasticity and microvascular tone. By encouraging gentle dilation of small blood vessels, circulation to sensitive tissues may be supported. For the optic nerve, a structure dependent on steady blood supply, this can be particularly relevant. In some individuals, visual decline occurs even when eye pressure appears normal, highlighting the importance of perfusion, not just pressure. But caution is critical, because ginkgo may influence platelet behavior. Individuals using anticoagulant or antiplatelet medications must consult a healthcare professional before use. What supports one physiology may complicate another. Assuming suitability, an early afternoon cup can feel less like stimulation and more like restoration, a lifting of the mental fog that so often settles after midday. Still, circulation and nourishment alone do not address a silent adversary that intensifies with age: inflammation. Inflammation is not always dramatic. It is frequently low-grade, chronic, and invisible, especially within the brain. Neuroinflammation is increasingly associated with cognitive decline, mood disturbances, and degenerative processes. This is where turmeric tea enters the conversation. Turmeric contains curcumin, a compound extensively studied for its anti-inflammatory properties. Curcumin is notable for its ability to interact with inflammatory pathways and, importantly, its capacity to cross the blood-brain barrier. Yet curcumin presents a challenge: poor bioavailability. Without assistance, much of it is rapidly metabolized and excreted. The solution is biochemical synergy. Black pepper provides piperine, a compound shown to enhance curcumin absorption dramatically. Additionally, because curcumin is lipophilic, the presence of fat supports its dissolution and transport. Preparation transforms outcome. A thoughtfully prepared turmeric infusion, warmed and combined with black pepper and a modest fat source, becomes more than a comforting drink. It becomes a targeted strategy against systemic and neural inflammation. By late afternoon, you've supported neural communication, retinal shielding, microcirculation, and inflammatory balance. But the most profound restoration occurs not while awake, but during sleep. As evening approaches, the body begins a delicate transition. Light fades, stimulation decreases, and physiology prepares for its most essential repair cycle. Yet for many older adults, this is precisely when frustration begins. Sleep feels lighter, more fragile. Night awakenings multiply. Mornings arrive without the sense of restoration they once carried. It is tempting to interpret this as an unavoidable feature of aging. But sleep is not merely rest. It is an active, highly orchestrated neurological process, one that determines how effectively the brain maintains itself over time. For decades, scientists believed sleep functioned primarily to conserve energy. That view has changed dramatically. We now understand that during deep, slow-wave sleep, the brain activates a specialized cleansing mechanism, often described as the glymphatic system. To visualize this, imagine what happens inside your brain across a typical day. Neurons fire continuously, processing thoughts, memories, decisions, sensations. Like any working system, this activity produces metabolic waste. Among these waste products are proteins such as beta-amyloid and tau, substances that, when allowed to accumulate, are strongly associated with neurodegenerative diseases. During waking hours, this waste gradually builds. But during deep sleep, something extraordinary occurs. Brain cells subtly contract, creating expanded spaces between them. Cerebrospinal fluid then flows through these channels, washing away accumulated metabolic debris. It is, in effect, a nightly detoxification cycle, not the marketing kind, but a literal biological housekeeping operation. Here is the critical implication. If deep sleep is insufficient, fragmented, or replaced by sedation rather than natural sleep architecture, this cleansing process is impaired. Waste clearance slows. Over years and decades, accumulation may contribute to cognitive decline. Quality of sleep becomes as important as quantity. This is why the final beverage of the day deserves careful consideration. Alcohol, though commonly used as a relaxant, disrupts sleep stages and suppresses restorative slow-wave cycles. Heavy caffeine intake late in the day delays sleep onset and fragments depth. Even some sleep medications induce unconsciousness without fully replicating the brain's natural sleep rhythms. A gentler pathway is possible through specific herbal infusions known for their calming neurophysiological effects. Chrysanthemum tea has been valued traditionally for its soothing properties, particularly in relation to eye comfort and heat-related tension. Modern analysis reveals the presence of flavonoids and antioxidant compounds that may help support ocular tissues under oxidative stress. More subtly, chrysanthemum is often described as a cooling herb, not metaphorically, but in the sense that it may contribute to a slight reduction in perceived body heat, a signal that encourages sleep initiation. Body temperature plays a surprisingly powerful role in the sleep cycle. A mild decline is one of the triggers that tells the nervous system it is time to shift toward rest. Chamomile tea offers a different, yet complementary, mechanism. Chamomile contains apigenin, a bioactive compound that interacts with GABA receptors in the brain. These receptors function as part of the nervous system's braking system, reducing excitatory signaling and promoting relaxation. Many pharmaceutical anxiolytics target the same receptor sites, but often with stronger, sometimes disruptive effects. Apigenin acts more like a dimmer switch than a shutdown command. Instead of forcing sedation, it encourages the nervous system toward calmness. Thoughts feel less racing, muscular tension softens, and the transition into deeper sleep stages becomes more natural. For individuals who describe tired but wired, EVENINGs, physically exhausted yet mentally restless, this gentle modulation can be profoundly supportive. There is another nighttime factor frequently overlooked: hydration. A common complaint among older adults is waking with dry, irritated eyes. Vision may feel gritty or blurred upon rising. In some cases, this relates to incomplete eyelid closure during sleep. When the ocular surface is exposed even slightly overnight, tear film stability declines and the cornea dries. Systemic hydration influences this process. Consuming a warm, caffeine-free herbal infusion roughly an hour before bedtime supports fluid balance without overstimulation. It helps maintain mucosal moisture and tear film quality throughout the night. Thus, the evening ritual is not indulgence, it is preparation. A cup of chrysanthemum or chamomile becomes a signal to the brain. Stimulation is ending, repair is beginning. Neural noise lowers, sleep depth improves, glymphatic clearance proceeds more efficiently. Ocular surfaces remain better hydrated. When viewed across a full day, a pattern emerges. Morning, gentle neural activation and vascular support. Mid-morning, retinal nourishment and protection. Afternoon, circulatory optimization or inflammatory regulation. Evening, neurological quieting and restorative sleep preparation. This is not about drinking tea for its own sake. It is about aligning fluid intake with biological rhythms, stimulating when the brain needs clarity, nourishing when tissues require rebuilding, calming when the nervous system must disengage. And yet, one more crucial dimension remains to be addressed. Because even the most carefully selected infusions cannot compensate for certain lifestyle patterns that silently undermine brain and eye health. Before we complete this discussion, we must address a truth that is often less appealing than a new remedy, yet far more influential. No beverage, herb, or nutrient can fully compensate for daily habits that continually work against your biology. Teas can support, they can enhance, but they cannot override physiology. Let's begin with light, something so ordinary we rarely question it. Your brain evolved under a predictable cycle of bright daylight and near total darkness at night. This rhythm governs melatonin production, hormonal balance, cellular repair, and sleep depth. Yet modern living has rewritten that script. Screens glow late into the evening. Overhead LEDs extend daytime long past sunset. Even brief exposure to bright, blue-enriched light at night can suppress melatonin, delay sleep onset, and fragment deep sleep stages. The consequence is not just fatigue. Reduced deep sleep directly interferes with memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and lymphatic waste clearance. In practical terms, the brain loses both its nightly filing system and its cleaning crew. A simple adjustment carries disproportionate impact. Dim lights in the evening, reduce screen exposure in the final hour before bed, and allow darkness to signal the nervous system that restoration should begin. Next, we consider movement. With age, many individuals become understandably cautious. Joints stiffen, balance feels less certain, and activity gradually declines. But circulation, the very system responsible for delivering oxygen and nutrients to the brain and eyes, is profoundly dependent on regular muscular contraction. Skeletal muscles function as auxiliary pumps. When you walk, stretch, or engage in gentle resistance activity, muscles compress veins and assist blood return to the heart. This supports cerebral perfusion, stabilizes blood pressure regulation, and enhances vascular flexibility. Without movement, circulation becomes sluggish, oxygen delivery diminishes, fatigue deepens. The brain does not thrive in stillness. Even modest, consistent activity sustains the vascular dynamics upon which cognition depends. Then there is sugar, the most socially normalized disruptor of metabolic stability. Excessive refined sugar intake contributes to glycation, oxidative stress, and chronic low-grade inflammation. In blood vessels, this accelerates stiffness. In neural tissue, it amplifies inflammatory signaling. In the retina, it stresses delicate capillary networks. The effect is cumulative, not immediate. It is the daily repetition, not the occasional indulgence, that shapes long-term outcomes. Stabilizing blood glucose through balanced meals, fiber intake, and mindful carbohydrate selection reduces inflammatory burden throughout the body, including the brain. Hydration, too, deserves renewed respect. As thirst sensitivity declines with age, many older adults live in a state of mild, chronic dehydration without realizing it. Even small fluid deficits can influence blood viscosity, cognitive clarity, headache frequency, and ocular comfort. The brain is exquisitely sensitive to fluid balance. Consistent intake of water and non-caffeinated beverages supports circulation, thermoregulation, and cellular efficiency. Herbal infusions become particularly valuable here. We must also discuss stress, not dramatic crisis stress, but the persistent, low-level tension that quietly reshapes physiology. Chronic psychological stress elevates cortisol and sympathetic nervous system activity. Over time, this influences sleep quality, immune regulation, vascular tone, and even hippocampal function. Memory, mood, and concentration are not purely cognitive phenomena. They are deeply hormonal. Calming rituals matter. A warm beverage, slow breathing, evening quiet, gentle routines. These are not luxuries. They are regulatory signals to the nervous system, shifting the body from vigilance toward repair. Finally, expectations themselves require examination. Many people approach aging with an assumption of inevitable decline. Every forgotten word becomes confirmation. Every stiff joint becomes proof. Yet perception influences behavior. Behavior influences biology. When individuals believe improvement is futile, engagement drops. When engagement drops, function follows. Supporting the brain and eyes is not about chasing youth. It is about preserving capacity, clarity of thought, steadiness of vision, quality of life. Seen together, your daily pattern becomes a form of medicine. Light exposure shaping hormones, movement shaping circulation, nutrition shaping cellular resilience, hydration shaping cognitive clarity, rest shaping neural repair. Within this framework, teas are not magical solutions. They are strategic reinforcements. Green tea for gentle cognitive activation. Goji berry infusions for retinal pigment support. Ginkgo for circulatory dynamics where appropriate. Turmeric for inflammatory modulation. Chamomile or chrysanthemum for sleep transition and nighttime recovery. Not obligations, options, a toolkit rather than a prescription. Because the goal is not perfection, it is consistency, awareness, and alignment with how your body actually functions. You are not merely getting older, you are navigating a different physiology, one that responds best to precision, patience, and respect. We've now walked through a full 24-hour strategy, from morning hydration to nighttime neural restoration.